Time for a couple of minutes with our legal analyst from Martin Harding and Mazzotti, Paul Harding. Hello, Paul.
Good morning. Good morning, guys.
Hey, so a couple of interesting cases. The first one involves the murder of a priest down south. His name was Rene Robert. He had local ties. Grew up in Waterford. Graduated from St. Mary's School in Waterford and Catholic Central in Troy. He was murdered by a guy he was trying to help, Stephen Murray, a repeat offender, drug problems. Anyway, many years ago, long before the murder, he had signed a declaration that if he was ever murdered, he didn't want his killer to be subject to the death penalty, which is interesting because now Murray's going to court, and Florida prosecutors say that if indeed this guy is convicted of murder, they will seek the death penalty. So kind of an interesting case. Can prosecutors do what they want to do? Would they ever consider the victim who's put in writing, I don't want the death penalty?
Well, the prosecutors absolutely make the decision as to whether or not this case is a case that goes to a jury, again, for a separate proceeding, as there's going to be a death penalty request. But there's just no precedent here. The fact that someone 20 years earlier would sign a declaration sort of exonerating the person who committed a murder against them from the death penalty. The prosecutor in this case can decide what they said they're going to go the death penalty phase, but ultimately, I think it is a factor they need to consider.
Yeah, they said that it doesn't matter from their perspective whether the victim is a priest, a nun, a drug dealer, or somebody else. They're all considered a victim. But where this is a little bit different is you actually had a written statement from this guy saying that I don't ever want my killer to be subject to the death penalty under any circumstances. I don't think that could be any more clear.
And their family is supporting that. Initially, the family came out and they were supporting the death penalty, but once this declaration became public and became clear, they too have said, listen, this is what my brother, this is what my family member has wished. Please follow his wishes and do not go for the death penalty in this case.
You've observed a lot of stuff in court over the years, of course. Do you think a prosecutor could be swayed by this kind of thing? I know that Catholic officials from Georgia and Florida plan to be there today to protest on the courthouse steps. Is that something where political pressures could play into a decision?
Absolutely. He's going to sit there and he's going to see who's in the courtroom, how much media is covering this, and it's going to be a factor. Now, the safe call here is to do as they said, do what they would do in any case. I don't necessarily believe him that this was a drug dealer versus a priest, that the precedent or just the approach is the same. That's what they're saying. Filled courtroom always has an effect on everyone in it.
Another interesting case, last year Melania Trump had pictures published of her and allegations that she wasn't really a model. She was really a high-end escort. And the Trumps had threatened to sue. And now a judge said, that can go ahead and file a lawsuit. You can move forward. It's interesting because sometimes you hear about these empty threats, but they're actually following through on this.
Yeah, I think what they're really looking for these papers to retract and kind of say, hey, we're sorry, we jumped the gun on this. It was a rumor. We should not have done this. Two of the media outlets, two of them being digital so far, have gone ahead and done that. Defamation of character, two things. You need to show that what they're saying isn't true, so she would need to prove it's not true. And interestingly enough, you need to show that there was intent. Difficult standard to prove. Defamation of character is a tough case to prove, but having a lawsuit is expensive. So they're hoping that they just get a chain of people issuing statements that it was wrong, and right now the courts have said you can proceed. They haven't even sued yet. They just got early indication that the case can move forward.
And it is very difficult to win against a public figure.
Yeah, the standard's different. Public figure, we can take a little more fun. I mean, some of the stuff that was said about Donald Trump on a daily basis was said about a regular citizen. They would have a right. He doesn't, and Melania falls into that category.
Paul Harding, Martin Harding Mazzotti, 1-800-LAW-1010. Thanks, Paul. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.